Hello and welcome to my presentation on calling with inside Microsoft Teams. My name is Barry Coombs, I'm the Chief Technologist here at Computer World, and I've had a number of different roles through my IT career looking at both the infrastructure, the data center side, and the technology that matters to our users. I spend most of my time now looking at both the strategy for Computer World, but working with our customers to understand how we can utilize technology to help them with their business outcomes and overcome specific challenges. In this presentation today, we're going to look at a number of different aspects. The first is to just have a look at why now is the reason to be looking at your phone system, about how calling is handled inside your enterprise. Next, we're going to move on to a demonstration of the technology from a user's perspective. So if a user is using Microsoft Teams to place their calls, what is that experience? What does it look like and how does it work? Next, we're going to look at the administrative experience. So for you managing this solution, what are the areas you need to consider and how do you go about doing day-to-day management tasks? And then finally, we're going to have a look at some of the design and architectural choices that you need to make. It's important that when we're considering this, that you're looking at those decisions up front to stop you being limited by some functionality further down the road. So if we start and have a look at the reasons for change, I think the last 9 months has changed a lot to do with how we work, but also how IT need to be providing solutions for the business moving forward. Work is no longer a location, it's an activity, and we've seen that during the last 9 months that the users are now largely working from home, and as we move forward, flexible working is here to stay. It's unlikely we're going to go back to working predominantly in an office environment. So that means we need to change the way that we're looking at delivering IT technologies, and one of the most areas that I think needs change, needs radicalizing, is the way that we consume and implement our phone systems inside a business. The traditional way of delivering a phone system inside a business is very office-centric. Typically, you'd have a phone system in each and every large office. Maybe the remote branches would be connected through to one of those large offices. But in this day and age where users could be anywhere and everywhere, having a physical piece of hardware in a dedicated office and providing telephony for that office location just simply doesn't work with the modern way of working. So we're looking at more cloud-centric models where the phone system is delivered as a service, where users can use it no matter where they are and which device they are on. And these are all reasons why Microsoft Teams is the ideal solution to be looking at for your phone system of the future. If you couple that with people's reliance already on Teams, it's likely, if it's been rolled out inside your business, people have turned to it for video conferencing, to collaborate with their users. So why not further enable those users by putting calling into the same application that they're using day in and day out? So Microsoft offer calling as a component inside Microsoft Teams, but there are a number of considerations that you will need to make, and importantly, licensing is something that you do need to make sure you get right. The first aspect is you're going to need a chargeable, a licensed version of Office 365. And I'm not going to go into the various different versions in this call. Speak to one of the experts at Computer World for some specific advice. But there's a wide range of plans to suit every different type of user, from frontline into more advanced users. The next component that we need per user is the Microsoft phone system license. Think of this as the phone system that you have on premises today, but being ran by Microsoft in the cloud, and you need to license it per user. The next element we're looking at is how you're going to place the calls to a traditional phone system network, how you're going to place a call to a mobile phone system, how you're going to place a call to other work numbers. And Microsoft offer us two choices, and we're going to dig into these a little bit later on. But we've got the Microsoft calling plans that are available, where Microsoft handle all the calling packages available to you, and we will couple that with calling credits. We'll dig into that a little bit more later on. And then next of all, we've got direct routing, which allows us some advanced functionality, routing out via external phone system components, either inside your business or with external partners like Computer World. So without any further ado, let's get into some demos. I want to try and make this as interactive as possible, show you what this is actually like rather than just talking around specific slides. So we're going to take that user scenario first and look at how this would work for them. So if I swap over here to the Microsoft Teams client, and this is only one way to interact with the phone system, we could also be doing this with iOS or Android phones, as well as a number of other devices, and we'll dig into those in a moment. But what we can see here inside the Teams client is we now have the calls element available on the left hand side because we have licensed the user for that specific functionality. I can see that I'm greeted with a call pad, so I can quickly and easily make calls just by dialing the number. I've got a number of options in the left hand side, and in the main part of the screen I've got speed dials and groups that I've configured by using these buttons at the top. Before we dig into this and look at some of the calling functionality, we're going to go to my initials at the top here, then go to settings and just have a look at some of the calling configuration options that we've got from a user perspective. So from here we can see what happens when someone calls me and if I don't answer it. We can configure our voicemail, our different ringtones. We also have the ability to be part of or leave any calling queues that have been configured for us. Now that is configurable to a further extent with administrators allowing or disallowing people to leave the queues if they desire, and we'll have a look at that in the administrator portion of this video. So if I just minimize that, let's place our first call and see what this looks like from a user perspective. So I'm just going to call Dave. I've already configured him as a speed dial. I'm going to click the phone symbol there. We can see that the call is then placed. We can see it's not a meeting. We haven't got all the meeting options that are available at the top, but we can actually convert calls into a meeting by adding someone from Office 365 using this at the top, and that would turn it from a single one-on-one call into a conference call, including those people you've dialed in. But if we click the three ellipses, we can then choose device settings to configure our headsets, microphones and things like that. We can choose to put a call on hold if we need to just answer the door or something like that. But we also have the option here to either consult and transfer the call or to transfer the call. So what I am going to choose to do here is I'm just going to choose the option to transfer the call, and I'm going to transfer this call over to Debbie. We have an option here to choose whether we want to ring back if there is no answer. So if Debbie doesn't answer the call, do we want the call coming back to us? So we're just going to tick that and then we're going to click transfer. That call would now be transferred over to Debbie so Debbie could answer that call and speak to Dave. We can see there from that perspective now that Debbie has answered the call, she's talking to Dave, and we're able to get on with what we want to do. Now, further to that, we have the ability to see our contacts, which is synchronized with Exchange Online, our calling history, everyone that's called us, missed calls, and the calls we've placed, and finally the voicemails. And this is one of my favorite features from a user perspective. I can see that I've got a voicemail here from Dave. I can see the translation of the voicemail into text on screen. I can choose to return that call or play the call here, including playing it at 2 times or above as well. So it's nice and quick for me as a user to place my calls. I'm using the Teams client that I'm already familiar with, and if I was working from home, I could choose to log in on the web or use my mobile device to undertake these functions. Now, if I switch back to my presentation, we can have a look at some of the other devices that are available to work in conjunction with calling in Microsoft Teams. So the first are shared devices. These are devices that you would be putting in your meeting rooms inside your office or in huddle spaces. And there are a wide range of solutions available. We've got the Microsoft Teams meeting room solutions, MTR solutions, that have can have multiple cameras, displays, a device on the middle of the desk. And we have the cut down solutions, the unified collaboration bars, that are a simpler solution, much like the soundbar you might put underneath your television, but they've got fully integrated cameras and also the Teams functionality built into them. The next set of devices are personal devices, and these are in two different forms. We've got things like headsets. Everyone at Computer World uses Poly headsets to make sure that we get the best call quality, but also to make sure people can hear us well. You might have portable audio conference solutions. So a solution that you want to be able to give to maybe a sales professional that's out on the road to be able to do audio calls. They can plug it in or use Bluetooth to use that speakerphone as a smaller audio conferencing solution. I've got the Plantronics Alara headset and bass unit here, and that's a really interesting solution. It allows me to put my iPhone on it. It will wirelessly charge my iPhone. It will automatically start Teams when I put my phone on it, and the Bluetooth headset pairs directly to my phone. You can also control your playlist and your music and things like that from it as well, so that's quite an interesting solution. And finally, we are able to deploy handsets. And certainly if you are a user or you're designing a solution for a user where they're not sat all day with a headset on, their primary role isn't to be on the phone, it's probably better for them to have a dedicated handset that they can just pick up and use when it starts calling, rather than scrabbling around for a headset to put that on. You might also find that people like executives will appreciate the premium audio experience you will get with a dedicated device. And if they do have PC problems, it also isn't going to affect their call. So there's a wide variety of solutions, and if you want some help picking what is right for each of your users, we have a session in Define Tomorrow, I think it was earlier on today, so you should be able to watch it on demand, where I run through the various different scenarios with Poly to match those up to the individual devices. But also feel free to reach out to your Computer World specialist who will help and advise you further. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to have a look at the administrative experience and what is it like to manage the Microsoft phone system. So we've logged into the Teams admin console. This is the same location you go to manage everything to do with Microsoft Teams. And the first thing we're going to look at is underneath devices, we can see the IP phones that have been configured within inside this tenant. So we can see that we have two phones configured. Anthony is the user of both of those. We can see that we've got a Poly CCX 500 and a CCX 600. CCX 600 is a fantastic enterprise device. So for the CEO in your company, really big display, displays your calendar on it and all sorts. And the more widely used CCX 500 that is suitable for a much wider amount of users. We can see on here the current status, whether they're online or offline. It's important to note that these devices might just be plugged in at home, out on the internet. They don't need a VPN connection to work, and you get that real-time information back to here. You don't have to use a dedicated piece of management software to manage these phones, firmware updates and configurations. You do it all from the Teams Admin Center. We can see both of those phones are offline in this example, but also see that one of them has got a config update that is needed and the IP address of the one that is reported in more recently. We're going to see exactly the same under user phones. That's just showing the user phones. Under common area phones, we'd see those phones that are going to be in your reception area, maybe outside meeting rooms, in common areas inside your business. They won't be assigned to users, and they're licensed differently as well. You still need to license them, but they are licensed as a common area phone. We then have conference phones, things like spider phones. So Poly have what we call spider phones that have got the multiple prongs on them that will sit on your boardroom table. Configure those from here as well. And finally, configuration profiles that we can use to configure these devices. So we can see that we've got the office worker profile here. We can see that we've got things like timeouts, location, date format, settings around power, and network configuration all in here. Quick and easy to configure and send it down straight from here. So again, no need to have a separate management console to manage any of that. We also have on the left the ability to manage Teams rooms, collaboration bars, and also Teams displays. A fantastic new type of device, much the same as a Alexa Show or something like that, that will sit there and you can use it to be able to have a dedicated device for video calling and things like that. So Lenovo and Yealink have the first two solutions available for those, and we're waiting for some of the more manufacturers to release them. So next, if we come down to the phone system elements and look at how we configure those. So the first element that we've got here are the phone numbers. Now, if we're using the Microsoft calling plans, we get our phone numbers from Microsoft, and that's what we can see on this screen. So we can see a variety of phone numbers. We're able to request them for any geographical location, and we're also able to port our own phone numbers to Microsoft. So if you were rolling this out in your business, what you would do is you would get everything up and running with the phone numbers that Microsoft allocate you. Then prior to a switchover, you would arrange to port those numbers over to Microsoft. Now, all in that mix, I'd recommend that you run some basic training for users to know what to expect. So when the port happens, they know what to expect, they know how to use it. And that's something we can help you with here at Computer World. Where you've bought numbers or ported numbers, you can see the full history of that in this view. You'll notice on this screen that we have two different types of numbers. We've got user numbers, does what it says on the tin, they're the numbers for your users. We then have service numbers that we can use for things like auto attendance and call queues, and we'll dig into those a little bit more. We've got emergency policies to allow you to configure when someone calls an emergency services number where it should be geographically located. That's important we get that right. But it is also important that we consider the ability for users to make emergency calls. We tend to recommend a standard telephone is left in place where you will be utilising any voice over IP phone system. We've got dialing plans that's used to set the rules around translation of phone numbers out to the telephone network. So if you're used to dialing 9 to get an outside line, we can implement all of those things inside of here. We've got the direct routing configuration, which we'll dig into a little bit more in a moment, but this allows us to work with the external telephony partners to have our calls made via them rather than Microsoft themselves. We have voice routing, so if you need to route various different calls via different elements, you can configure that inside here. And now we're starting to get onto some of the really interesting functionality that is baked into Teams calling without needing any external software or configuration. So here we've got a call queue. You will find these in place in call centers if you're doing customer support, or in this example, we've configured one for IT support. So let's just step through this and understand what the options are available to us. So first of all, we've named this call queue, it's for IT support, and we've allocated it a Microsoft 365 user that is known as a resource user. That user has been allocated a phone number that could either be from Microsoft or via direct routing. And we now come through and configure the call queue. So we have the option for a greeting and music on hold. We have the option to do no greeting or play an audio file. Clearly, if this is customer facing, you'd want to welcome them to the call queue, say that their call would be answered shortly. And in the on hold music, you might want to reassure them that the call is important to us and we will get to them soon. We also then have the ability to add the agents into the call queue. So we can see that Debbie and myself are in that call queue. And that's the element that we can control inside our settings, whether I wanted to be in or out of this queue at any given time. I can't remove myself, but I can temporarily stop the calls coming into me. And that is configured with a setting down the bottom of this screen that we can see agents can opt out of taking calls if they want to. We also have an interesting setting here that I recommend you look at that is presence-based routing. So if Debbie is popped out to lunch, her status says she's not available, it will stop the call coming through to her. So depending on the purpose of the call queue, you can really control what is going on here. As we go down, we can see that there are a number of different options, but why don't I show you what happens when I place a call to this queue. So I'm just going to grab my mobile phone and I'm going to just call the IT support number. Put it on speakerphone, so hopefully you can hear it. So you can hear the hold music and you can see on my screen that there is a call coming for IT support into that call queue. I'm going to hang up so I'm not talking over it. But Debbie will have also got the queue there, the call there due to the settings, or we could have set that for serial. So if I don't answer, then Debbie will answer. Or if Debbie hasn't taken a call for a longer time than me, it could go to Debbie first. It's really customizable as the way that we can do call queues. The next element we're going to look at is auto attendance. So typically you'd use an auto attendant for a main number or maybe a larger department where you want to figure out where is best to route someone. So again, I'm just going to come in here and have a look at this. I can see the name for the auto attendant. I can see the phone number. We've configured the operator, and because our demo environment's relatively small, Debbie is unfortunately the operator, as well as being a number of other critical roles in this business. We've got the time zone, the language. So what we're also able to see on here is if I click next, we're able to then go and see the settings for what should happen when that call is answered. So I can see here that we set a message, a greeting, for when the call is first answered. Do I want it to be no greeting? If it's customer facing, we probably want to put a specific greeting on there, and I'd recommend that wherever possible you use an audio file rather than the text to voice services that are available. And I'll demonstrate what that does sound like, but certainly an audio file will be a lot more professional. We then have the option for what should happen. Do we want to just cut the user off? That's probably only useful if we just want to say this department's closed tough and dump the call out. Not really that relevant because we have the ability to control times a little bit later on. To redirect the call to another number, or to play a menu option, which would be the usual experience here. So if I choose the option to play from a menu, we can write our message, pretty much the standard that you'd expect here. Please select from the following options. Press 1 to speak to marketing, 2 to speak to sales, and 3 to speak to technical support. And you see that we've tied those menu options here to calling an individual person in these examples, or to call the calling queue that we configured earlier on. We have the ability to configure what the business hours are and what should happen outside the business hours. So we've just configured this to say the department's closed, please call back when we're open, and what the times are. And we then say what we want to do. We have the ability to set holiday settings. So in this example, Christmas 2020, we're able to go and configure when we're not working and what should happen with the calls during that time. And what the settings are if people want to find people through the menu. Finally, we're allocating it a resource account similar to the queues with a phone number associated with that. So again, let me place a call to that to show you how that will work. So I'm just going to call the main number. Again, I'll put it on speakerphone.
Thank you for calling this line tomorrow. Please choose from one of the following menu options. If you would like to speak to marketing, please press 1. If you would like to speak to sales, please press 2. And if you would like to speak to technical support, please press 3. Transferring your call to marketing.
So what you could hear by that, it was a very simple menu system. I was able to select the department I wanted to talk to, and that was translated by the set of rules behind the scenes there. As you will have heard, it is quite a mechanical voice, so as I've already said, you probably want to record your own voice message and upload that from the menu if it's anything customer facing rather than an internal facing service. We have a number of other settings available to us here, such as park policies, calling policies, and caller ID policies. But hopefully what you have seen is it's very quick and easy to configure from this side, meaning that your job as an administrator hopefully is a lot easier than administering your existing phone system. If I just swap back to the presentation now. So let's just talk a little bit more about calling plans and communication credits. So if you are looking at calling plans, that is the Microsoft element that allows you to break out to the telephony network. Per user, you need to buy a calling plan. You can also choose to buy an international calling plan on top of that if you desire. And any calls that are placed outside of what is included within that calling plan, you will need communication credits available that can be pooled for everyone to utilise. So this will be things like international calls if you've not got them included within a bundle, or the ability to make premium rate calls and things like that. So you've got to make sure you consider those elements if you are going with a calling plan and a Microsoft-led solution. It's probably the quickest way to get Microsoft Teams calling up and running. It's more designed for smaller businesses, I would say, and it's probably more cost effective once you get a few users on there to break out via a partner using direct routing, which we'll come to in a moment, rather than using calling plan. But it's certainly an option available to you. So now we're going to have a look at direct routing and how that works and how that's configured. So as we can see, direct routing allows us to use the Microsoft phone system, which we can see over here on the right hand side, hosted and managed by Microsoft, in conjunction with your telephone system or the telephone system of a partner. Specifically, the component is called a session border controller. Now, it may be if you've got an enterprise class phone system today, you've already got one of these in place, so you may be able to use that in conjunction with this. And some of the benefits are, it means you can choose who you're breaking out the calls via. That may mean you can get more affordable call packages. You can integrate third-party solutions, as we can see in the middle of this diagram. So if you want to coexist an existing phone system, work with a contact center solution, or work with maybe a legacy piece of equipment or solution that you've got, having a look at this would be the right way to go. It also offers you the flexibility to be able to change your phone system in the future. So lots of our customers that are looking at this do look at the direct routing solution. Computer World have a managed service available where we can host and manage the SBC on your behalf. We can help you configure that and you just deal with day-to-day administration of Teams calling. Or again, we can also offer that as a managed service to give you complete peace of mind and take it off your hands. Now, there are a number of supported solutions when it comes to SBCs. You can see those on the screen. It's important that not only have you got a supported session border controller, but you've also got the relevant appropriate firmware version to work with the Microsoft phone system. Now, the second element might be you've got an advanced requirement around a customer contact center, and you'll want a specific solution in place to be able to deal with the advanced functionality of dealing with a contact center. Microsoft offers support via a number of certified partners, and here at Computer World we work with both Anywhere 365 and Enghouse Interactive to deliver contact center solutions that are fully supportive of the Microsoft phone system. So to give you a reminder of the comparison between your two options, we've got the Microsoft native solution using calling plans and calling credits, or we have direct routing. If it's a small solution, an initial proof of concept, then probably going the Microsoft native route is quick and easy for you to do. Most of our customers in production, as long as you're a medium-sized business and above, will find it more affordable to go down the direct routing route. And it also allows you to further customize it in a way with legacy elements, with contact center solutions, call recording solutions, and things like that. So it's important that you consider your options there and choose the right one. So to bring this all together, Microsoft Teams offers a variety of solutions for you to modernize your phone system, to move it away from being office-based to it being cloud-based, allowing your users to be able to connect from any location on a variety of different devices. You've got some architecture decisions to make as to whether you want to go with a Microsoft native solution or a fully supported partner-led solution with direct routing and SBCs. You need to fully consider the licensing aspects and get your Office 365 licensing in conjunction with phone system, calling plans, calling credits, and there is also the ability to add an audio conferencing facility on there as well, where users can choose to dial into audio conferences, which would be really important if you're inviting customers into your conferences. So hopefully you found this presentation useful. Hopefully it's giving you an idea as to what Microsoft Teams calling could do for your business. If you want to understand the next steps and talk about your specific solution, there should be some information below this video that will give you the right information to reach out to us at Computer World to help you understand, look at the technology, do a proof of concept to see how it's going to work for your business. I hope you found this presentation useful. I hope you're enjoying Define Tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.